Prevent Connect is a national project of the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, sponsored by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The views and information provided in this web conference do not necessarily represent the official views of the U.S. government, CDC, or CALCASA.
Hi everyone, this is Tori Vandeland with Prevent Connect. This podcast is the second part of our conversation with Haley Harold of Moxa and Kevin Duffy, a local bar and nightclub owner hosting sexual violence prevention programming. Kevin and Haley tell us more about their plans for expanding the training and how crucial it is to have bar owners' support and involvement at every step of the prevention process.
I really like how you both were mentioning how you want to get to the point where it's the managers doing the training. And I think that lends really well to the next question we want to ask of you, Kevin. What changes have you noticed in your bars and other establishments since these trainings have started?
When we first conducted our first trainings, for me, it was very sobering to hear from some of our employees that they had witnessed guys coming on to women in unwanted fashion or being overly creepy, that type of stuff. However, it was also heartening to hear that they identified that behavior and they actively did something about it. That was from the very first training. So the good news is they saw it, and some of them, reacted positively to it and did something about it. I think now we're seeing, especially in our last set of trainings, which happened a couple months ago, it's more uniform. I think all of the employees are talking about if they see something, how they interact with it. We had a session where all the bartenders were talking about how they rely heavily on the security guys. All they have to do is point out somebody and say, this guy's being creepy, and they do something about it. So I guess the changes that we're seeing is that I think it's very well known across all of our employees, bartenders, security, barbacks, front of house, back of house, that it is not okay. I think they all know that they can lean on their peers and their colleagues to do something about it, and that management and ownership supports them 100% in this. Mm-hmm. So I think the short answer is I think everybody in the organization recognizes it's an issue and they know how to deal with it.
And that's so important that you and your managers have set that tone where all the staff and employees feel empowered to step up and do something if they see things heading south. It sounds like you all have done a lot of really great work already, and that you are getting started on this exciting new organization and new training model, building off of the success that you've already had. So we want to know more about what recommendations or lessons learned that you have that you want to pass along to other sexual violence agencies looking to partner or expand their partnership with bars, nightlife, alcohol serving establishments, anything of that sort.
If we believe in this, and if we believe this is an issue in bars and restaurants, and we do, that, again, part of the change maybe has to come from us. If somebody from, let's say, like a Moxa organization came into my bar, into my office and said, hey, we want to train your guys on your staff on harassment training and bystander intervention, I'd listen to them and say, yeah, let me give that thought. But if another bar owner, especially somebody who I respected, came in and said, hey, we're doing this program, it seems to be working, it's really getting our staff attentive to issues, and I think you get a lot out of it, I would probably have a little bit more weight with that. So so organizations like Moxa who are doing this, I think that they need to try to partner with some of their successes in the bar business to try to help them communicate the message. And then, Moxa, when we first met with them before the training, Haley and her team took us through their syllabus. Here's how we do this. It wasn't hours of lecture, and it wasn't this. It's a 1 hour program where different scenarios, definitions are provided up front, but then different scenarios around how have you guys handled this, or have you ever seen that? And it is not difficult for our staff, regardless of the role, to talk about what they have seen, what they have done. And obviously that it weighs a lot more with their colleagues to hear a manager, a supervisor, another bartender talk about what they've seen and done, as opposed to somebody from the outside. Haley is a talented facilitator who knows how to really bring some of these thoughts and ideas and opinions up. So again, long-winded way of saying, if these groups like Moxa can walk people through how a session would go, I think that would help get over some of the nervousness of people saying, oh, I've been through sexual harassment training 10 years ago. I understand it. And that's not for us. It's kind of hard to articulate some of the things that they could do. But one is get other bars to help them sell it. And then two, walk them through early, how it's really their own employees talking about what they've seen.
So those are fantastic points, Kevin. You are great at describing this work. So sorry, we have to give you that compliment. Haley, what about for you? What things would you say in terms of the lessons that you've learned from this partnership with Kevin and some of the other work that Moxa's done with bars?
My biggest piece of advice is to meet people where they're at in every sense of the term. So where they're at in their understanding of sexual violence and the dynamics and why it happens, where they're at in the time they're willing to give you with their staff, where they're at in how they would like the training to be structured, where they're at in what other issues they may want to address. So sometimes things about the built environment will come up. Like we know in this corner, it's always a problem. And so we always have staff there, or maybe we need to put a light there. Just really meeting them where they're at and understanding that that's a starting point, and all the work that you do together is going to build off that point. I think that sometimes as people doing prevention work and who care so passionately about serving survivors and preventing sexual violence, sometimes those relationships can be really challenging, especially when maybe we're working with a community partner who doesn't understand the dynamics or says things that we know would be really hurtful if a survivor heard those things. In all of the work that we have done in bars and restaurants, in schools, in the community at large, we have seen time and time again that when we give people grace and we meet them where they're at, and we are really dedicated to building on the relationship, that we have positive outcomes, both in preventing sexual violence, but also those community partners learn and they grow, and they think about things in new and different ways. And I think that that's some of the most rewarding work that we get to do.
Thanks, Haley. And I also just want to recognize that you mentioned that sometimes you're also thinking about the built environment. And so it sounds like some of your work goes beyond just like giving people information and the tools in terms of bystander intervention, but also looking at like how you can impact the physical environment, which I think is really important when you're trying to do some comprehensive work.
I think that something that's unique in our approach is that our goal is to facilitate a conversation that can happen every night of the year. We go into the training thinking that we're facilitating a conversation and that there are people already on that staff, whether the staff is 400 people or 4 people, that are already recognizing these warning signs, and they're already intervening in ways that are really helpful and that are already preventing sexual harassment and assault. And when we approach the training like that, and we are focused on teaching them the skills they need to have these conversations, to seek support when they need it, to give support before a coworker even asks for it, I think that it really opens the door for those conversations to happen. So I think of a handful of times just in the trainings with the bars that Kevin owns, where managers are there, Kevin's there, the other owner, Kevin, is also often there. And one of their staff members will bring up something like, you know what, I think that if there's a drink that's not attended, if somebody went to the bathroom or turned their back or walk away, like that's not safe. We should just throw it in the trash. And then immediately they not only get support from their peers saying like, yep, we're going to throw that in the trash, but they also have the owners and the managers right there thinking and saying like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So we're having these real-time policy changes, whether they're about, lighting in a dark area, or whether they're about something like an unattended drink, or somebody who looks like they've had too much to drink.
Thanks, Haley. It's really good to hear kind of the breadth of the work that you're doing with the bars because, number one, I think meeting people where they are is really important, but then also knowing that, again, it doesn't just have to be about giving folks information, but also changing policies, looking at the physical environment. So all of those things I think are really unique to Moxa. And, I know that you all have had so much success in some of the other community work that you do with those strategies. So thank you for sharing.
I really appreciate hearing more from both of you about this partnership and how this training has impacted the bars, how you all are looking to expand. Kevin, I really appreciate the stance that you take as an owner. I think that's so important for, how your staff feels supported in doing this work. And with that policy example that Haley had shared too, and how you are bringing that from your bar to the other bars in your community and, talking to the other bar owners that I think that has so much potential for a huge community impact. And it feels maybe like, oh, I'm just talking to colleagues. Like it's not a big deal. But for us, I think it really, we can see the great culture change that can potentially happen in this industry and in your area.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to talk with us today and share some more about your work and your partnership. And, it's great to hear the perspective of someone who's actually a bar owner. So Kevin, thank you. And Haley, we're big fans of Moxa and you. So thank you. Any parting words to our audience before we let you all go?
We've learned a lot from the relationship too. And that it has been very rewarding. And, we've been able to see real-time culture change happening at Kevin's bars, and not to, compliment you too much, Kevin, but a lot of that is like the buy-in from the owners. I would say like every 6 months or so when I go to train, I can not physically, but I can specifically point to shifts in the culture at the bar. And so much of that is because Kevin and his partner are involved, and they are holding managers accountable, who are then holding staff accountable. It's all the stuff that's happening between the trainings. That's really, really shifting the culture. So we've really enjoyed the partnership.
Many people, when they hear about training, they turn up their nose and say, okay, great. We have about 2 sessions a year. And I dare say many people actually look forward to it. I legitimately look forward to them. I think they're fun. And I learn a little bit more each time around what's going on in the bars. I do spend a lot of time in the bars, but obviously not as much as our day-to-day managers and employees. So they're fun to attend.
Thanks for listening.